5 years passed in Concordia, like the turning of carefully arranged game pieces. The frightened young woman who had arrived through a broken portal was gone, replaced by someone whose mere whisper could shift markets or topple trade empires. Rose had built her network with the precision Master Chen had taught her, becoming someone whose knowledge and discretion were worth more than gold. She sat now in her private office overlooking the trading halls, no longer the simple quarters of an enforcer's guest. The rooms spoke of subtle wealth, rare books, fine wine, elegant furnishings that whispered of power, rather than shouted it. The message came on expensive parchment, delivered by Master Chen's personal servant, a simple request for tea at dawn. But Rose knew, after 5 years of building her power in Concordia, that nothing from Master Chen was ever simple. She found him in his private garden rather than his usual observation room. He knelt before the tea ceremony setup, his movements precise as ever, though she noticed a new stillness about him. "It's time," he said without preamble as she took her place across from him, "to collect on that favor you promised so long ago." Rose felt something shift in her chest. Not fear, not after all she'd become, but a keen awareness that this moment would change everything. "What do you require, Master?" "Tell me," Master Chen began, his hands moving through the familiar motions of the tea ceremony. "What do you know of the shadow markets?" Rose kept her expression neutral, though her mind raced. The shadow markets were legendary, a secret network of traders dealing in items too rare or dangerous for normal commerce. Only rumors. "No," Master Chen corrected gently. "Tell me what you really know." She studied him for a moment before answering. "They exist in places between realms. The merchandise is often magical, always valuable and frequently illegal. Entry requires special invitation." "And?" "And you're going to tell me you need something from them." Master Chen smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Not me. Someone far more powerful. Someone who has requested my assistance in acquiring a particular item." "And you're calling in my favor to help obtain it?" "No," he said softly. "I'm calling in your favor to take my place in the transaction. Entirely." Rose set down her tea carefully. "You're not just asking me to make a purchase. You're asking me to represent you." "Yes." Master Chen's eyes held something she'd never seen before. Concern. "The item in question is significant. The buyer, even more so. But there are complications." "What kind of complications?" "The kind that requires someone with your particular talents." He produced a small silk-wrapped package. "Someone who understands both fire and portal magic." Rose went very still. In 5 years they had never spoken of her abilities, though she knew he must have guessed. "Who is the buyer?" "Someone who could make your position in Concordia completely untouchable." He paused. "Or destroy everything you've built here." "Are you offering me a choice, Master?" Rose asked, though she already knew the answer. "There are always choices." He unwrapped the silk package, revealing what appeared to be an ornate key. "But we both know debts must be paid. The question is not whether you'll do this, but how." "Tell me about the item." "An artifact, ancient and powerful. The buyer believes it's being offered at the next shadow market gathering." His fingers traced the key's intricate pattern. "This will grant you entry, under my name and reputation." "And the real complication?" Rose pressed. "The reason you're not going yourself?" Master Chen's expression grew grave. "Because someone else will be there. Someone who knows my face too well. Someone who would ensure I never left the shadow market alive." "An enemy?" "Worse." He met her eyes steadily. "Family." "Family," Rose repeated softly. "The kind that sends assassins or the kind that delivers poison in teacups?" "The kind that would recognize any agent I normally employ." Master Chen's voice carried years of carefully hidden pain. "My sister has Unusual talents for seeing through deception. But she doesn't know you. And what has your sister done to warrant such caution? She killed our father for control of the family's trading empire. Then our brothers, one by one, as they tried to claim their inheritance. He poured more tea with steady hands. I survived by appearing weak, unambitious. But if she sees me at the shadow market, she'll know you're moving against her interests. Rose considered the implications. And the artifact she's seeking could give her enough power to extend her reach beyond our family's traditional territories, into places like Concordia. The shadow market, Rose said carefully, has rules, strict ones about violence within its boundaries. Rules my sister has become adept at circumventing. Master Chen's mouth tightened. She never dirties her own hands. Accidents happen. People disappear on their way home. Nothing that can be traced back to her. Rose turned the key over in her hands, feeling its ancient power. When? 3 days. The market opens at midnight on the dark moon. He produced a second package, larger than the first. Everything you need to know is here. Maps, protocols, details about the artifact. Memorize it all, then burn it. And your sister? What should I know about her? She'll appear refined, cultured. She'll smile while she plans your death. His eyes met Rose's. Rather like someone else I know. Rose raised an eyebrow. Are you comparing me to your murderous sister? No. I'm telling you why you're the only one who can outmaneuver her. Tell me about the buyer, Rose said, tucking the key away. The one who could make or break my position here. A collector of rare artifacts, powerful enough that even my sister treads carefully around them. Master Chen's expression grew thoughtful. They've been watching Concordia's growth with interest. Your success in this could open doors even I cannot. Or close them permanently. Rose sipped her tea. What's the artifact? A crystal. He watched her reaction carefully. One that resonates with certain types of magic. Rose kept her face neutral, though her pulse quickened. Similar to other crystals I might have encountered. Perhaps. Though this one is said to enhance portal magic rather than fire. He paused. Which is why your particular experience makes you ideal for this task. You've known all along, haven't you? About Eldermeyer? I make it my business to know things just as you do now. His smile was gentle. Shall we discuss the details of your approach? The market itself, Master Chen explained, laying out a delicate rice paper map, exists in a space between realms. Access points appear only on the dark moon, and only to those who hold keys like this one. Rose studied the map, memorizing its details. Security? Extensive. Guards who can see through most illusions. Wards against unauthorized magic. And observers everywhere. He traced a path through the market's layout. The artifact will be displayed here, in the rare items section. And your sister? She'll have agents watching every approach. She won't expect me to send someone like you. Someone who understands both portal and fire magic. Someone who can think like she does. Rose touched the key again. You've been planning this for a long time, haven't you? Training me not just in information trading, but in exactly the skills I'd need for this. A master always sees several moves ahead. His eyes held both pride and concern. Are you ready to play at this level? You taught me that preparation is everything, Rose replied. What else do I need to know about the market itself? Appearances matter. You'll need to project the right image, wealthy enough to be taken seriously, but not so ostentatious as to draw unnecessary attention. He gestured to her current attire. You've learned to dress the part of a successful information broker. For the shadow market, you'll need to appear as something more dangerous. A weapon disguised as jewelry? Precisely. His smile held approval. The market operates on very specific protocols. Violations are punished severely and immediately. No open violence, no theft, no direct interference with legitimate transactions. But plenty of ways to bend those rules without breaking them, Rose noted. As my sister has proven repeatedly. He produced another document. These are the current market prices for various commodities. Memorize them. Anyone who truly belongs there knows the exact value of everything. One last thing, Master Chen said as Rose prepared to leave. The market has its own language, subtle gestures, specific phrases. A single mistake could reveal you as an outsider. He spent the next hour drilling her on the intricate protocols, how to greet different ranks of traders, proper etiquette for examining merchandise, the careful dance of negotiation. You've taught me well, Rose said finally, standing to leave, though I suspect you've been preparing me for this moment since the day we met. Perhaps. His smile was enigmatic. Or perhaps you were already what the moment required, and I merely helped you realize it. Rose tucked the packages carefully into her robes. 3 days. 3 days, he confirmed. And Rose? She paused at the door. Remember everything I taught you about appearing to be one thing while being another. You'll need it all. Rose returned to her quarters to find a stranger waiting, tall, well-dressed, with an air of quiet authority. It took her a moment to recognize the familiar presence beneath the unfamiliar form. Silas. She noted the ornate bracelet on his wrist, recognizing transformation magic. This is different. Promotion, he said, his voice the same deep timbre despite his human appearance. They're sending me to Earth. Apparently the mundane realm needs a safe haven for supernatural travelers. His smile was pure Silas, even on human features. They want me to establish a gathering place there. Earth? Rose moved to pour them both a drink. That primitive little realm with no magic? That's exactly why they chose it. No established powers, no ancient feuds. A perfect neutral ground. He accepted the glass. They're calling it the Shadow Realm Bar. You should come with me, Silas said, watching her over his glass. Your skills, your network. We could build something unique there. On Earth? Rose shook her head slightly. I have commitments here. Connections I've spent years building. Connections you could establish there too. A whole new realm of possibilities. His human features couldn't quite hide his hopeful expression. Think about it. No established information brokers. No complex political histories. We could set the rules ourselves. Rose thought of Master Chen's mission, of the shadow market, of all the delicate threads she controlled in Concordia. I can't. Not yet. She met his eyes. But perhaps someday. The offer stands, Silas said softly. There will always be a place for you there. She could hear what he wasn't saying, that he wanted her there, that he'd make sure she had a home in his new venture. But timing, as Master Chen had taught her, was everything. When do you leave? Rose asked, though something in her chest tightened at the question. 3 days, Silas replied. On the dark moon. They say the barrier between realms is thinnest then, makes the transition easier. Rose kept her expression neutral, though her mind raced. The same night as the shadow market. The same night she'd be risking everything for Master Chen's mission. That doesn't give us much time for a proper farewell, she said carefully. Then we'll make the most of what we have. He touched the transformation bracelet absently. I need to learn to move in this form anyway. Perhaps you could help me navigate dinner without breaking anything. She smiled despite herself. I suppose I could teach you how to handle fine china without minotaur strength. But even as she agreed, she knew she wouldn't be there to see him off. Another secret she'd have to keep from her most trusted friend. At least let me arrange a proper sending-off dinner tomorrow night, Rose said, already planning how to make their last shared meal memorable. Before you go start corrupting Earth's drinking establishments. Silas laughed, the sound still utterly his own despite his human appearance. I prefer to think of it as enhancing their drinking establishments. His expression grew more serious. You know, in all these years, you've never told me why you chose to trust me that first day. Rose studied him for a long moment. Because you helped me without demanding to know why I needed it. She poured them each another drink. And because in 5 years you've never broken that trust. And yet you still won't come with me. There was no accusation in his voice, only understanding. Some debts need to be paid before new ventures can begin. She raised her glass. To the Shadow Realm bar. May it become everything you envision. The transformation suits you, Rose observed, watching him adjust to his human form as he moved around her quarters. Though I admit it's strange seeing you without horns. Everything feels smaller. He carefully picked up his glass, still learning to moderate his strength. Lighter. But the council insisted I need to blend in on Earth. A small frown crossed his features. They say humans aren't ready to know about beings like me. Their loss, Rose said softly. Then, more briskly, now, about tomorrow's dinner, there's a private room at the Golden Leaf that would be perfect. Unless you'd prefer something less formal? The Golden Leaf? He raised an eyebrow. You've come a long way from sharing cheap wine in enforcer quarters. We both have. She watched him successfully lift his glass without cracking it. Though some things haven't changed. They spent the evening reminiscing, Silas gradually growing more comfortable in his human form. The wine flowed freely as they recalled their early days, the tunnel plot, his first attempts at observation, her lessons in reading people. Remember that merchant who tried to outsmart you? Silas chuckled. The one who thought he could play both sides? Hard to forget. He still flinches when he sees me in the trading halls. Rose smiled at the memory. Though not as much as he flinches when he sees you. Us, Silas corrected. We made quite a team. The word made hung in the air between them, a reminder that everything was about to change. Rose felt the weight of Master Chen's mission pressing against her thoughts, knowing she couldn't share that burden with Silas. Will you write? She asked instead. Let me know how Earth treats you. Of course. His human features softened with familiar affection. Though it won't be the same as having you there to keep me out of trouble. Keep you out of trouble? Rose laughed. As I recall, I usually led you straight into it. Yes, but always with a plan to get us out again. His smile faded slightly. Promise me something. What? When whatever's holding you here is finished. He gestured vaguely at her quarters, at all she'd built in Concordia. Promise you'll at least come see what I've built. See if Earth might have something to offer you too. Rose felt the familiar warmth of his concern, his unspoken feelings that neither of them ever acknowledged. I promise, she said softly. When the time is right. And no getting into too much trouble without me here to watch your back. If only he knew about the shadow market mission, she thought. But she just smiled and raised her glass. I never get into trouble. I merely create opportunities. As the night grew late, Rose could see Silas fighting exhaustion, the transformation magic clearly taking its toll as he adjusted to his new form. You should rest, she said gently. Tomorrow's dinner, then preparations for your journey. You'll need your strength. He stood, still slightly awkward in his human body. It's strange, he said, pausing at her door. 5 years ago, you were the one who needed sanctuary. Now you're the one staying behind, protecting what we built here. Rose walked him to the door, fighting the urge to tell him everything, about the shadow market, about Master Chen's mission, about why she really couldn't see him off in 3 days' time. Be safe on Earth, Silas, she said instead. Build something wonderful. After he left, Rose stood at her window, watching his figure disappear into Concordia's nighttime streets. In 3 days, everything would change, for both of them. She just hoped they'd both survive their separate challenges. The private room at the Golden Leaf was everything Rose had arranged for. Intimate but elegant, with soft lighting and the finest table settings. She'd chosen everything carefully, from the vintage of wine to the menu, wanting to give Silas a proper farewell. He arrived looking more comfortable in his human form, though she noticed he still checked his strength when pulling out his chair. The transformation bracelet gleamed in the candlelight. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble," he said, taking in the elaborate setup. 5 years of friendship deserves a proper goodbye. Rose poured the wine herself rather than allowing the servants to interrupt. "Though I still remember sharing that first bottle in your quarters, when you couldn't even tell a good vintage from vinegar. And now I'm about to open my own establishment." His smile was warm. "Thanks to you." "No," Rose shook her head. "Everything you've achieved, the promotions, the respect, this new venture, that's all you, Silas. I just helped you see what was already there." The food arrived in elegant courses, each paired with wine that Rose had personally selected. But it was the conversation that made the evening special. Years of shared memories, inside jokes, and the kind of comfortable silence that only true friends can share. "Remember that first night you found me?" Rose asked softly. "You could have turned me over to the authorities. Instead, you just helped." "And you could have disappeared once you were healed," Silas replied. "Instead, you stayed and taught me to see the world differently." "We've both come so far from who we were then." She studied him across the candlelight. The young enforcer and the suspicious fugitive. "Partners," he corrected gently. "That's what we became. What will always be, even realms apart." Rose felt her throat tighten unexpectedly. "The Shadow Realm bar will be extraordinary, Silas, because you'll make it that way." "It won't feel complete without you there," he said quietly, the words carrying all the things he never quite said aloud. The evening grew late, their conversation drifting between memories and hopes for the future. Rose had arranged for the kitchen to prepare Silas's favourite dessert, a rare delicacy from his homeland that she'd spent considerable resources acquiring. When it arrived, his eyes widened in recognition. "How did you—" "I have my ways," she smiled. "Consider it a piece of home to take with you to Earth." "You always did know how to acquire the impossible." He took a careful bite, closing his eyes at the familiar taste. "Though I suspect your methods have grown more sophisticated than threatening merchant princes in the trading hall." "Perhaps." She watched him enjoy the dessert, memorizing this moment. "But some things haven't changed. Like knowing what matters to those we care about." Silas set down his fork, meeting her eyes. "Rose, whatever's keeping you here, just promise me you'll be careful." She reached across the table, squeezing his hand briefly. "I learned from the best when it comes to staying safe." As the evening drew to a close, they stood outside the Golden Leaf, neither quite ready to say goodbye. "I'll have them reserve your favourite table," Silas said, attempting to keep his tone light, "for when you finally decide to visit Earth. Right next to the best wine cellar in the mundane realm, I expect." Rose smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. They embraced, his new human form still strange, but his presence achingly familiar. For a moment, Rose almost told him everything, about the shadow market, about Master Chen's mission. But some burdens were better carried alone. "Take care of yourself, Rose," he said softly. "Build something magnificent, Silas." She watched him walk away, his figure disappearing into Concordia's evening crowds. Tomorrow she would begin preparations for the shadow market. But tonight, she allowed herself to feel the weight of this farewell.
All right, you've made it this far. That means either you like what you're seeing, or you're lost. Either way, no harm in sticking around, right? Go on, hit that subscribe button, join the team. And while you're at it, hit like, because, let's be honest, you're already invested. And the bell? That's for you if you don't want to miss any of the action. You wouldn't want me to come find you. See you soon. And remember, once you're in, you're family.